The number of the day, I say simply heaven. The number of the day is 7.
This episode is brought to you by the number 7. Hey people, I've been reading through the book of Job, and on the second line, it talks about we're born to him, 7 sons and 3 daughters, and were his possessions 7. You can see that it comes up different here. It's the Shah, which is S-H or S-E, and the V-O-T. And here it's the Shah, V-O-E. But to help get a better idea, I went to the last book in this chapter. Always in the top of the page, it'll give you a riddle. In the bottom, it'll give you a clue. And same thing, beginning of the book and the end of the book, it'll give you a clue. But here they spelt 7 a little different. It's S-E-V-O-N-E. The 7. They'll give it a Shah, but it's a S-E. It's depending on the next letters, whether it's an E or an H. The E and the H were interchangeable. And this is where our word 7 comes from. S-V-O-N-E, 7. But Oxford languages that tell you it comes from a Germanic origin, or Old English Seophon, and Dutch Zeven, and German Sieben, of Old English Seophon, Indo-European root shared by Latin septum. Septum is the thing that divides your nose, is your septum. And then 7 is the middle between 13. 7 is half of 13. If you have 13 columns, the one in the middle is number 7. That's where that comes from in the Greek hepta. But anytime something comes from the old Hebrew Bible, they won't tell you. But they'll tell you this book of Job is 4,000 years old, and they'll say that's older than any of these languages. So this word 7 has a bunch of different spellings, and they center around just these 3 letters here. So if you're new here, I'm the self-proclaimed world's leading scholar on the Hebrew language. And I say this because, they'll say that, like much biblical Hebrew punctuation, the meaning of pasek is not known. They don't even understand what any of the punctuation means. Although there's a number of hypotheses, and if you look at their hypotheses and compare them, that they all could be shut down, within a couple pages of the Bible, their hypothesis is wrong. So I was self-taught, and I didn't look anything up until I had an idea. And so I finally broke down to look up these marks, and I started to figure out what a bunch of them mean. And I went to look them up to see if I could figure anything out. And there's a ton of them. And they don't have a clue what any of them mean. There's all kind of little markings that you'll see in the letters. And so they have a theory, and they actually use it. And they have a theory that it has to do with phrasing all the Bible in music, and how they accent letters in words. But they have a ton of strange names for these things. The Yara Ben Yomo, because it looks like a moon, So they named all of these. They weren't passed down. But I found a clue that somebody does actually know what some of these markings mean. But they look like this. And so all the little red dots, they say those are vowel points, adding vowels. And this cantillation is in blue. And they say it just has to do with accenting letters when you're singing the verses. And so I'm not going to try to memorize the names that they give all this, because they don't even know what it means. They made all this up, is what this says. So before they used the cantillation marks, they just use small letters. And nothing is known of the musical relation of these marks, but it seems likely they represent breaks or variations in a set melody. They don't have a clue, they just guessing at it. They say the purpose of all this is for in the synagogue, primary purpose of the cannellation signs is to guide the chanting of the sacred texts during public worship. So they say it has nothing to do with the reading, it's just how you accent the chanting. So if you suffer through this short video, you're going to know more about reading ancient Hebrew than these people that wear black cubes on their head. So the way they dress is the first clue that tells me they don't know how to read this. And then when they start pronouncing all these words, and they pronounce all the ba and the ha in front of the words, that's the second clue that they don't understand how to read this. So I'm going to shoot forward to where I run into one of these marks that proves my theory. And I'm going to work back to this 7. I'm going to show exactly how they got 7 out of these two words here. So the Hebrew word 7, they sit between 7645 or so up to the 7650s. And I went a little farther and I ran into this word, and they say the pronunciation of this word is Belul, B-E-L-U-L. And so you can see it starts with the shin and then B-L-U-L, Belul. They only added one vowel in the E. They didn't add any other vowels. And they say it's a snail. But, it starts with a shin, and they totally left that out in their pronunciation here. And it's because this mark that I told you in the last couple of movies, this little mark underneath here is just telling you that this S pronounced with the last word. And so the reason they didn't put this S on this word is because this other mark that caused this word to read backwards and inside out and forwards, to read both ends of this word, and so the S would have interfered. And so instead of writing 6 letters for this word, 7 letters, they wrote 4, put this one here, and they added these marks, these 2 little marks. It was a lot easier to cut in stone like this. You can get your words out. Plus, it mainly was just to show off their genius. But that's all it's saying is we'll have to look at the word that comes before this to know exactly how to read it. And it either reads, the U-M-U-K-M-K-S or the K-M-K-U-M-U-S. And it's just saying that the S reads with this word. And so this word is Belul. And we're going to see it come up another time. I'm going to backtrack through these 7s, how I found this. So this word number 7644, you see it comes up 2 times like this. A couple times it comes with a vav in front of it. And it's written with 2 different cannellations under it. And so this is the one that says that word stops here. It's 7, S-E-V-N, S-E-V-E-N, 7. But actually it's reading, these all, and this tells me to read this backwards. On, A-N, all on, in, 7. And this mark's telling me this ends here. This is 7. This is the word 7 that they're trying to hide. And they make up all these names to hide words. And then this one, is coming after this pasif in it. And it means that when this read here, it all turned around backwards. And when you got back to the beginning or the next line like this, then you came back and read here again. And this read S-E-V-E-N, 7. And then this line here told you to read this backwards. And so it's the 7 ves, V-S, to vest, to fill. The 7 veson, the 7 fill on. And you're going to see many times that they say the word 7 means to fill. And this is that other word in the same category, 7644, 5 times. And you see again that it has different markings. This time it's on the top, and this time it has this mark underneath. And so when you're reading this line on the top means you read this line and 7. And then the A, and this tells you to read back again here. And so it's the 7, and then you come back and read the top on, the 7 on S, on the 7 on's the cipher. And if this mark's like this, it's telling you to read this word and then come back and read this much more of it. This one is telling you to read this word through, and then come back and read this again. And then underneath it's the same thing. And 7 vest to fill. And then you read the va and an, the 7, and 7 to vest to on. And sometime it'll come up with this mark, and I haven't quite figured this one out, so I just read it through. But I know this means to add an A again on the end. And then this is in that same category, but it ends with an E now. And you see it has different markings here. It's on the E, just to add the E, and 7, 2 E's is a he, and 7 he, H-E. And here it's N7, and then E-N-E. E-N is the same as a B, and you see that in the Greek. You know, the E-N replaces the B, and it means in. This, and 7 in, and 7 in the. And so this E would read with this here, and so instead of Y, this means how now, and 7 in how. And then this is in the next category, 45. It starts with the L, so that's the of here. The L means of shaving. And so this is probably shaving. You know, the N-I is ing, and the little mark underneath says that the E is going with this word now, of shaving. And so this little mark here is the mu, and it means little. And shaving little, Y-E-W-U, and shaving little u. Ooh, that's when we don't shave every day. And so this word satisfied, this would be in the same category as good. You know, and it has a dot in there now, so now it's B. And you see the dot on the S change, so there's no E in there. And so you know that this is, and it's not to make SB, but it's is in, is. And you could tell it's an N because this little mark here says this is the next word, O-U-N, own, is in own. Are satisfied, is in own. And this same category, the abundance, you know, in all plenty. And so it reading backwards, you know, the call of vest, the vest to fill is, the vest is, and it's dot on the other side, so it's SV, to save. You know, you saved up, you have plenty because you've been saving. Save. And so the vest could also be written with a va, of V-E-S. That's where they're getting this full and this abundance from. The vest, and then save. And here, you know, it's full, it's of the save. You know, you see the mark here telling you this L isn't reading with this part of the word. You know, it's reading with the word before, of, HS, of has, of save. And then up to word 7648, you know, it has the mark here, so you're reading the S-O, V-S-V-O. And so it's so in save, you know, it's fullness, so in save. And then 7649, you see it changes up, has different marks, you know, so here it's the saves, the save, so in C, and here it's just telling you this S right with the last word. And so you see in this category, you know, that all these words have the SB, except this one's missing the S. But when you look at the word, it's there. You know, they're just pronouncing the B-A, the B-O-A. And they're missing the S. And there's just more to prove my theory that this line means this S is reading with the last word. It's not part of this. And so this tells me that somebody knows this, but they're not giving out this information because they don't want anybody to be able to read this. The rabbis can't read this. They go to school for 14 years after they memorize the Torah. They memorize the rest of the Bible because they can't read it. But this little mark means this S read with the last word, so it's the piss. The pisses, P-S-E-S. The pisses vow. You know, back in the day, they used to come by and collect all the pisses vow. And so this word, you know, with the dot over here, deceive, you know, is to receive, you know, and satisfied, to see, when you got it, it's deceive. And so this is, best in joy, Joy. The two S's, the best of joy. But with a little moo up here, that means little. So it's the best of little joy. And so that, the best in joy, that's from the second page of Genesis, on the seventh day. It's the day of joy. When you relax and joy. And then, deceive of joy. But this is the 7, spelt with the T. And the Vav and SEV. And then telling me that the O is reading with this one over here. And sieve at. Where you received at. And sieve and then backwards of. See, the mark's different all the time. The words are never the same. These were poets, and it's embarrassing to copy somebody else's work, or just rewrite your own. So the words are always different. But these are all many different words that they're going to give the meaning 7. Even Ba. And so this gives me a clue that this mark here I wasn't too sure about. It gives me a clue that it possibly means to read it at the end, being that they just pronouncing this as Ba. And so this word for Sheba, is the same base word for the 7 with the E, the H or the E. And shame to Shiva Ben. Shame to Shiva Ben. And you see it has the different mark here, so it reads backwards. And now it's the SOV. And so it's the gyros, to turn, the turns of Shiva Ben. And then word 7654 of save, see, you're sufficient, of savor. And this, where they said this is, and still were not satisfied, they say this LA is not, but it's not. It's when they put it with this S, it means less. And so if there was a dot here, it would be less save at. And so here, it's just the less than at. And then 7655, we'll get a couple more words. They say means 7. And so this is reading, HDE, backwards and forwards after it. So it's the heed of, and to heed of Sevo. And here, it's the added, 2 D's, added ye of Shiva. Here it's the milk, and the A is reading with the Vav, so it's the milk of Shivat. In that last movie I did, I showed you where the milk means the rain. And this word 7657 got a couple different ways, but it's at the beginning of the line here. And so it's in Shiva, and then backwards to Vesin. In Shiva Vesin, and then from Joys, in Shiva Vesin from joys. You can see this word here, how it's different both times. And it's the Shiva is, and the Shiva Ves from joys. Shiva filled from joys. Then here it's 2 different ways, and Shiva is, Shiva Ves us joys, to fill us joy. And then you see in this word 7659 again that it's 7, but it's starting with a B. And again, it's because this line is telling you that this S read with the last word, and so it's just BOTIS, the bodies. And this is backwards forwards, so it's reading here, denying us bodies. But this word 7658, this is this 7, with the SVSEVONE. It's the only one time it comes up. It's the only word that's in its category. So in the first line in the first book of Job, a man there was in the land of Oz, and Job was his name, blameless and upright, and feared God, shunned evil, and were born to him 7 sons and 3 daughters. And then it goes on to tell how God took all this away from him. And And the whole book, you got 42 chapters here talking about how he loses all. And it doesn't come to the end of the book before he's ever restored his losses. And his sons and daughters finally got a name. So I'm going to grab this, and was born to him 7 sons and 3 from the first chapter, so we can look at it beside on the end where it comes up in chapter 42. So this first word, that's the one I read, wage, or how they. And it's the one that comes up in the first page of the Bible every time it says, and God said, let there be light, and there was. This is what they say, this, and there was. And it comes from this word in here, yea, Y-E-Y. When you're voting on a new bill, you have yeas and nays. And if the yeas win it, then there was, it will be. It will be. The yeas have it. And so this line in 1, it didn't have that. It was, and we're born, and we're born to him. And this one was just Lou. And they'll say Lou is he, she, or it. And so, it's really similar here. The 7 changes. And the beans is what they're reading this, beans. Your kids all started as beans. And you can see these 2 words for 7, they have total different numbers. They're different. 7658, 7651. But there's more difference here, and they don't see it because the rabbis don't understand how to read in this punctuation. But this one's reading W-Y, or W-I, meaning how or who, why, and so how or who, and then W-L, will, and then D-U, who will do. And I know this reads like this because of this mark under this L. Tells me that this word starts here, Lou. Who will do it, save. And this mark under this O here tells me that this reads separate, O-E. And who will do it, save. O-E is odal, and it means your heir. That means your sons. This is the part of this that means your sons, this O-E. The heirs of Vin. Vin is a date. The date that's on your bottle of wine is your VIN. The date that's on your car is your VIN. Who will do it, save, the odal VIN is. But this one has this tack here. And so it's telling me to read this backwards and forwards. And so now it's the wage or how they. And so it's a U-L-U, alu. And then sieve, the elusive. U-L-U, and then the S-E-V. And then you see the line under here telling me if this is a 1, O-N-E, the elusive one. Vin, the Vin is. That's where your word Venus comes from. And then the mark here is telling me this reads separate, so this is just, is use, U-S-E, to use. And then the lose, L-U-S-E, B-N, nut, N-U-T, and nut is your daughters. And so how they, or the wage, elusive one, the elusive one, Venus. And so the elusive one, Venus, they give it number 7 here. The elusive one, Venus. And so the people writing this up, they don't quite have it figured out either, because you can see the difference here. Here they got 3, 5, and 8. They got Saturn, Mars, and Mercury on one side. And here they got 3, 4, and 7. Saturn, Jupiter, and Venus is on one side. And so it's not all as mixed up as you think. It's just, one of them is in your view, and one of them is if this was you, and you're standing looking out. And so actually, this is the only ones that they got mixed up. And so Google will tell you that, Venus was known as Shak-Ek to the Mayans. And they tell you the Mayans knew it better than any civilization outside Mesoamerica. And that's only because all this language has been changed. But you can see in Old English the planet was known as the Morgenstera, morning star. And it was not until the 13th century that the name Venus was adopted. And so we can see here, where they were getting this name, Venus. Vanim. M, the final M is a S. All the final letters that look different, there's a reason for it. The final P actually reads as a R when it's on the end. And so the wage elusive one, Vin, in the time is use. USE, the time is use. Loose, LUSE, Lucifer, the light. Ben, BN, Ben, what? Ben is the time served. Where have you been was the time served. The Ben what? To use Lucy, the light, Ben what? In that time what? And so during the book of Job, they were using Venus as a clock. They weren't calling it Venus. They were calling it the elusive one. In the Vin, the time it comes out, the VIN number, when it was born, the VIN is used. When the time it comes out to use the light of Ben what? Bing, Big Ben, Bing, 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 and Ben has to do with times. So wage elusive one, VIN, the birth is to use the loose, the light, to time what? And so I believe I prove in this movie that pretty much everything you read in Google, Wiki, all that is all lies. Either they don't know or they don't want you to know. You pretty much have to figure it out yourself. But as much as this as I've read, what I do know is these ancient poets were playing, and yea, and let there be. And the elusive one was also 7, was also Venus, was also Lucifer, the light bearer, and they were using that light. And he's a poet, and he's trying to mix all these names up for Venus, all in this one short little line in 4 words. Lu, Siv, one, Ben is, use light. Use Lucy.
Don't forget, I won't forget.
Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.